Okay, so I'm probably gonna get some heat for this one from some, high-end real estate investors, a lot of those real estate gurus, but whatever. I started out with this method, and it's really something. If you're buying your home for the first time, then you're probably going to do the same thing, because all of us don't know these super advanced real estate tactics. So using sites like Zillow and Realtor.com is probably the way that you're going to start doing it. And I'm just trying to be real with people. So if you're going to be doing that for your first method, like I did, how most people do it, then I want to show you the best method of how to use those sites to find the best deal. Because a lot of people just go in there and they just try and find, the house that's perfect for them, or a house that looks really nice. And that might not always be the best deal. If you're really trying to get into real estate investing, then the first step is being able to find a good deal. You're probably not going to be able to find a great deal on Etsy and Realtor. That's what a lot of these high-end real estate investors might say. I totally get that. But for your first time, that's how it's going to be. So if you're going to be doing that, you're going to want to make the best choice. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so people who actively invest in real estate will probably shit on the idea of using these sites. The reason why is because, homes listed on these sites are usually ready to move into houses that are being sold for top dollar. As you get more experience with real estate, a lot of real estate gurus will say that you should find off-market properties. That's definitely the way to go to get the best deals, but that's pretty hard to effectively do for people buying a house for their first time, especially if you're using the VA loan, which has a lot of criteria for the condition of the property. So we think that if you're using your VA loan for the first time, then you should definitely use these sites to find your first property and get used to the home buying process. Later, when you have more money and more experience, you can definitely start trying to find off-market deals. But for this video, we're going to be focusing on how to use these sites to find a decent property for your first time. Okay, so first, you're going to want to identify your market and research that market. Your market is obviously going to be based on where you live, because in order to use your VA loan, you have to have the intention of moving into the property. So because you're going to be locked into the area where you live, you can look in the city where you live or surrounding cities. You want to research each one of these cities to find the best deal. It kind of sounds harder than it actually is, but we'll get into that. There are a couple key points you want to look at when researching a market. One of the most important ones is the average rent for that local area in relation to the home prices. So for instance, if you want to buy a house that is like $1 million, but you can only rent it out for $2,000, well, that's not as good a deal as if you bought a house for $100,000, but you can rent it out for $1,000. Any easy way to see this is just by dividing the monthly rent by the value of the house. So first, you're not going to be renting this property out because you need to live in it to use the VA loan. But at some point in the future, you're probably going to rent it out. So you want to make a good, smart financial decision starting out. Another key point you want to look at is the value you're getting when buying a house with multiple bedrooms or a multi-unit house like a duplex or a triplex. So if you can buy a one-bedroom house for like $100,000, but a two-bedroom house costs $120,000, it will likely be a smarter choice to buy the two-bedroom house over the one-bedroom house, because the two-bedroom will likely rent for more than the one-bedroom house and would therefore be a smarter decision. Likewise, if you can find a duplex where each unit has, 2 bedrooms and it costs $200,000, this will likely be a better decision than both the 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom options that I had previously explained. A couple of the things that you want to keep in mind is how hot a market is. So how likely it will be to appreciate over time. Effectively, how much this property will grow in value over time because the area is getting more popular and more in demand. If you do the research for your local markets and you see an area that is up and coming, or it's like on the outskirts of popular areas that are expanding, it will likely be a smart decision to buy in these areas to get that extra added value of appreciation. I'll show you an easy way to see this in Zillow. And lastly, you should keep in mind the demographics of the area. Does the area have a low or high crime rate? Is it close to popular schools that parents might want their kids to go to? Is it in an area where there's a sustainable and diverse job community to ensure that the people who who are renting from you will always be able to have a job and pay their rent. These are all things that you want to look at when identifying the best deal for your first home. So getting into Zillow now, I'm going to use Zillow instead of realtor.com, but they're pretty much the same thing. So the first step is you want to type in your local area and just get there first. So for this example, I'm just going to be using San Diego, California. Okay, so first what you're going to want to do is remove the boundary, just because you don't want to be limited to just that particular zip code. So next, make sure that you select for sale, and not for rent. You want to select the type of property that you're going to be trying to buy. So depending on the area you live in, you'll likely be highlighting houses or multifamily units. But in some overpriced areas, like specifically San Diego, you might need to select condos just because houses might be too expensive. So for this one, we're going to go ahead and take off the manufactured ones, take off lots, and we'll leave townhomes and apartments just because those are pretty similar to condos. It's just kind of like a different way they classify them. So we'll leave all of these highlighted right here. So if you haven't seen my other video where I explain why condos are not the best choice for buying a home, but sometimes it's kind of unavoidable. If you don't need to buy a condo, then I would definitely suggest not selecting condos, townhomes, or apartments. And that's just because it's going to be a little bit harder to make the rents work in relation to how much you're buying the house for, because you're going to have to pay HOAs. So for the price limit, I would suggest setting the price limit to slightly higher than what you're pre-approved for. I go over how to get this pre-approval limit in one of my previous videos, but if you don't know it, like a simple Google search should be able to give you a basic idea of your limit. It's going to kind of be, it's not based on the zip code, but your zip code is going to dictate how much you get paid. If you're in the military, it's going to be, off of your pay grade. But if you're out of the military, your zip code is really going to correlate to how much you're getting paid. So you can kind of use it as a good general indicator of how much you're going to be getting pre-approved for. So like, for instance, if you had a job in San Francisco, you're probably going to get paid more than if you, lived in the middle of Oklahoma. So you'll be approved for a higher loan amount. But obviously the homes in San Francisco are more expensive than Oklahoma. Okay. So, say, you got a pre-approved for roughly $650,000 if you're living in San Diego. I would set your max price limit towards something like, 700,000, just so that you can see if you can find, a great deal for slightly higher than your limit. You don't want to miss out on a great opportunity just because you set your limit to, like $10,000 less than what that property is selling for, and you never even see it because you filtered it out. If you end up needing more than your pre-approval limit, you will need to put down 25% of that remaining amount. So, for instance, if you're pre-approved for $650,000, but you get, a great deal at $700,000, you would need to put down 25% of that $50,000 difference. So you would need to put down $12,500 as a down payment. So just keep that in mind if you think that you're going to be spending over your limit. Okay, so for the low price, try doing a search where you don't set a minimum low price. It does kind of help sometimes for you to just put in like a small number, like 100 or 200,000 based on the zip code, just to filter out some of these spammy ones or listings that are really just lots of land, but for some reason they didn't get filtered out. So you can just put $100,000 for San Diego. Okay, so now you have all these properties right here. So, because I lived in San Diego for a while and I know the different neighborhoods and areas, I know that, this area down here is the downtown area. So in downtown areas, the prices are probably going to be higher than the properties like for condos, and they're mostly going to be condos in this area and not really single family homes. And they're probably going to be more expensive, right? Because it's a downtown area. So that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to exclude this area. But logically, I know that it will be likely to harder to find a good deal in this area. Okay, so, just based off of looking at this map, because I lived here, I know where the downtown area roughly is and where, single family homes start. There's still a lot of condos in here. I know this area too. And once you get over here, there's going to be a lot of single family homes. But that's where, understanding your market and your neighborhood really comes into play. You're going to spend a lot less time if you know this information. If you don't know this information and you live in a big city, you can toggle, condos. So if you can just toggle these ones off. And let's see. And it should give you like a rough estimate of like where single family homes are now. If you're not really sure, like if you just moved in there, and you see how like all these ones that were previously highlighted for downtown are now gone, and there's just a bunch of single family homes over here and over in this area. So that's kind of a good way if you're not super familiar with the area and you're trying to find single family homes, if you don't want to go the condo or apartment townhome route. Okay, so let's try to zoom in a little bit. This is that downtown area that I was pointing out earlier. I know based off of me living in San Diego and doing some research into the market, these are where a lot of the popular beach areas are. This is North Park. This is North Park, Hillcrest. There are a lot of like cool hipstery neighborhoods, so I know that these are probably going to be expensive. I wouldn't rule that out. It's just that I know that those are going to be mostly condos in this area, and then moving out here is where I'm going to start finding some single family homes. So let's try and stick to the single family homes right now, because I'm going to say in my head, I don't want to get a condo, or maybe I'm not making that decision yet, but I'm saying I would like to not get a condo if I don't have to. By looking at this information, you can start picking up on some trends, right? You see a lot of 500s, a lot of 400s. Here's like a 300,000. Here's a 275,000. Yeah, it's hard for me to say numbers. But mostly, it just by looking at this information and taking in more information, I'm starting to see that, the bottom threshold for a lot of these are about 400,000 to the mid 500,000s. So, obviously you can spend up to 650,000, but, I'm starting to see that I don't need to spend that whole amount to buy a home, right? Just because you're pre-approved for a certain amount doesn't mean that you should spend that whole amount. And so keep in mind that generally the cheaper a property is, the higher the likelihood that something was wrong with it, right? If you have like an outlier where everything in this area is this price, but then one is drastically cheaper, that means there's probably something wrong with it. Depending on what's exactly wrong with it and how much work you want to put into the property, a cheaper house, comparable to others in that neighborhood might be an option, but the VA loan does have strict criteria on what type of house you can buy. And if it's not in a livable condition, if there are certain things wrong with it, I can go over that in another video, then you're not going to be able to use a VA loan on that property. Once you kind of get into this and you start getting some more information, if you start thinking, a lot of these are like in the 400s, you can definitely lower this limit. So like say I was like, okay, $700,000 for, let's see what this is set to. I have it set to any right here. You can, so I didn't go over this, but you can select, however many bedrooms. Let's say we wanted to do 2 bedrooms, right? Okay, so it didn't really change too much. We're still looking at, 400s to mid 500s. So let me just change this because I want to remove any outliers that are really expensive, like in the high 600,000s, right? If a bunch of properties that are a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house are selling for, 400 to 500, but there's a super nice one that's 650,000. Well, I'm probably not going to want to go for that one if I'm trying to actually make some money with this property. So let's cut this down to maybe like 550. Okay, so that definitely did eliminate a lot of stuff. And again, you can move around the map as you need to. As you start looking at some of these properties, you're going to start noticing some trends. What's the average price for a 1-bedroom? What's the average price for a 2-bedroom? What's the average price of a 3-bedroom? And you should be writing this information down, right? So this one right here, it's 500,000. It's a 3-bedroom. This is a 3-bedroom for 540,000. This one right here is a 3-bedroom for 520. So specifically for this area, this is City Heights right here. A lot of people call it Shitty Heights because it's kind of shitty. The average price for like a 3-bedroom is around the 500,000s. Right. So if I saw a property that was a 3-bedroom that was, $750,000, I would immediately be like, nope, that seems pretty overpriced. I'm cutting that one out. So you see how learning an area, learning what the average price is for 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, you can quickly start determining in your head, is this something I should look more into, or can I immediately rule it out? And that's going to save you a lot of time. You don't want to be looking at each one of these and trying to be like, oh, is this a good deal? Is this a bad deal? Right? That's going to take too much time. So here's a 2-bedroom. It's for about $100,000 lower. Okay. Here's a 2-bedroom. It's $315,000. That's a big difference from this one. That's $100,000. Why is this one $100,000 cheaper? It's got about 900 square feet. This one has 980. This one I would assume is maybe in a nicer area. It's got some nicer features in it. But again, is how much you're spending on this property going to be reflective of the rents you can get for each one of these? Is this one going to be a smarter decision because you're going to be having a lower mortgage rate, but it's still a 2-bedroom, 2-bath? Can you roughly get about the same rent? And so this one would probably be a better deal. Here's a 4-bedroom for that. Here's a 2-bedroom for $459,000. So again, comparing these two, I'm starting to be like, this one seems like a better deal than this one, regardless of me getting into the details with it. Here's a 2-bedroom for $330,000, right? So you're starting to see like, okay, these ones are in a reasonable range. These ones are outlying a bit. Here's a 2-bedroom for $400,000. So say, I wanted to hone in on a certain area. I did my research and I was like, okay, City Heights, and this is actually where I bought my property in San Diego. It's near City Heights. And the reason why I did was because they've got like a downtown area where it's growing and it's expanding and it's kind of becoming like a hipster trendy area. The housing prices were not this expensive. They were relatively cheaper when I bought my property, but that neighborhood started to expand outwards. So I tried to buy on the edge of that neighborhood, and I've got some pretty good appreciation since then. So, say you did your research and you're like, okay, I really think City Heights is coming up, right? I think it's going to be a more popular neighborhood. You might want to hone into this area, be like, okay, well, here's City Heights. That's what you want to do first, is you want to be on the big map, start learning the neighborhoods, figuring out, where is an area where I might want to buy a property, and then doing some research into it. If you can't find a good deal in that neighborhood, move on to another neighborhood, right? But you don't want to be looking at a huge map and trying to go from property to property all over the place, because you're not going to be able to be consistent with that data. You're not going to be able to compare it to something relative to that area. This is all relatively in this area, so I know that a 3-bedroom house should not really be more expensive than these. If I move over to another area of San Diego that's by the beach or something over here, and it's $700,000 for a property, I can't really tell right off the bat if that's a overpriced property in that area or if it's underpriced. And a lot of you guys are probably saying, $700,000 for a 2-bedroom house, that's insane. Yeah, it totally is. But again, this is San Diego, California. So I'm trying to make the numbers work here just to show you that, you can potentially find a property anywhere. That's why I picked this expensive place right here. Okay. So let's see. I put it to 2 bedrooms earlier. Let's go and put it to any. So that way we can get some 1-bedrooms come up in here. Okay, here's a 1-bedroom for $144,000. And say, you just want to get a quick look at this. I do this a lot too, where I just say use exact match. All right, so we'll do 1-bedroom, 1-bath. Okay, so it's going to be an easier way for you to kind of be like, okay, well, what's the like the average price that I should be able to buy a property for within a 1-bedroom within this price range, right? So you got 144, you got 199, 230. So you're looking at, this seems like an outlier. It seems like I would immediately think that there's something a little bit wrong with this property. So you can kind of be like, okay, high, like 100,000, $200,000 mark to, mid 200,000s, right? So if you see one that's like 300,000, okay, this one is definitely overpriced, right? So let's toggle that back. Okay, so I'm just gonna pick a random property now, but let's say you did all of this research and you found a good 2-bedroom house in City Heights that's in a lower part of the price range for all 2-bedroom houses. So let's just pick one. Okay, here's a 2-bedroom one, $300,000. All right, so you're gonna open up the details of this property and let's break down the finance part now. I think most people can understand how to find the market we were just talking about, trying to figure out what's the range for a 1-bedroom, what's the range for 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, so you can immediately identify, is this property overpriced or underpriced? And then when you can find some properties that are in the lower price range of what you're looking at for a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, then you can start looking into those deeper. But I'm telling you, most of the time, where you spend most of your time doing stuff and it's just wasted time is jumping all over the map and not being specific. You want to hone in on those details, and then it makes it a lot easier for you to be able to find a good property that you're looking for. Okay, so we're looking at this property right here. A lot of times these overview ones are like really ridiculous to read. The people who make these are sometimes just super weird and they don't know what to write to sell a good property. It's really weird. But sometimes they do put good information, like right here it says current monthly rent is $1,300. That's something that you might want to write down because you're like, okay, a 2-bedroom house in this area is renting for $1,300. That's they said which is below market with room to increase for added value. Yeah, that's definitely below what the normal market is. $1,300 for a 2-bedroom in San Diego is pretty low. But this is important to know because you might be like, oh, well, that means that I'm going to be buying this property and there's someone already renting it and living in it. Unless they're planning on vacating in 60 days, or unless you're planning on giving them notice to vacate in 60 days, that might not be an option to buy that property. Okay, but getting down to these numbers. So it's pretty good to look at this home value tab right here. I like to look at it because I like to see kind of how this property has appreciated over time. So, looking from 2012, this home was, $100,000, and then it moved up by now to $300,000. So, you can definitely see like the power of appreciation with this stuff. 2012 was after the market crash. Like stuff had already relatively bounced back from here. And, over the course of 8 years, this property went up $200,000, that's what I'm talking about, is if you can find some properties that are in an area that are likely to appreciate and you make the numbers work for those, you can get that added value of appreciation. So if you held this property, for 8 years and you sold it for $200,000 more than what you bought it for, I would take that $200,000 and I would go to an area that's not San Diego, that's not so expensive, where you can make these numbers work even better and buy a property pretty much completely outright and get some pretty good monthly cash flow. That's why even if you live in San Diego, I think you should be using your VA loan. But, rant completed, whatever. I also look at this too, because I like to see, was it listed for rent? What was the rent price? When did it last sell? Has it been sold a lot of times in the past? If it's been sold a lot of times, that could be a good indicator that something's going on. They might be having troubles with the property. There might be damage that they don't want to deal with. That might be something to look into. Maybe they can't get it rented and they're losing money. So I would look at how often it was sold. It was sold in 2005 and the last time, and now it's 2020. So, this is something where I wouldn't, there's not really much you can infer from here. I wouldn't infer any negative things. And then you see your property taxes right here. Yeah, property taxes suck. Okay, so let's get into this monthly cost. Principal and interest, it's the first one I always select. Okay, this is assuming you're putting down 20% down payment. We are not going to do that. We're going to put down 0 because this is a VA loan, right? So if you don't have to put down a down payment, I would suggest you not. Keep it on the 30-year fixed loan. Interest rate, that's going to be really fluid. It's going to be on the year that you buy the property, because federal interest rates change every year. It's going to be based on the current real estate market, right? It's going to be based on your credit. But I would maybe leave this number just how it is because usually Zillow does a pretty good job updating it. If anything, I wouldn't change it too much. You might be able to change it a couple, small, like a tenths of a point down or tenths of a point up, but I wouldn't put it at like 1%. You're not going to get that. I would keep it right now, maybe high 2s, but I would keep it at about low 3s. Over time, that might go up to, about 4 to 4.5 or something. But right now, interest rates are pretty good. Okay, so when we put down this 0 as a down payment, what's going to happen is this mortgage insurance is going to pop up with an amount. If you haven't seen my previous video, I go over what this is. But just unclick this box because since it's a VA loan, you're not going to have to be paying PMI on this. So that's going to decrease your monthly amount now because you're not going to have to pay for that. Anyone else who's not using a VA loan, if they put down less than about 15% or 20%, depending on who you're borrowing from, you're going to have to pay PMI. So unselect that. It's going to lower your monthly payment. property taxes, home insurance, keep that selected, because that's really based off the zip code. That's based off like the type of property. So I wouldn't change these because that's going to be about what you're going to be paying on those. Right here, they include the HOA. I just want to make sure that they're including this in the price. Okay, they were including that in the price. A lot of times when you're looking on here, they might not include the HOA fee. You're gonna have to kind of dig through this listing and see if the realtor put it in there. Sometimes they don't, and you might have to talk to your realtor to find out what the HOA is. And that's why, you know, I dislike condos, is because you got this HOA fee. It's $300 a month. That's not really going to anything. You'd be surprised. Yeah, this place has a pool, sure, that's gonna increase the rent value. The HOAs are gonna pay for the gardening and shit, and like the roofing if there's any leaks, but honestly, you're going to learn it's kind of just money down the drain. They don't really do too much with their money. It's kind of bullshit. But okay, so it's $1,881 is what you're going to be paying on your mortgage for a 2-bedroom house, 30-year loan at this interest rate. Okay, so you're going to want to take note of this number because, you know, write that down somewhere. I'm telling you, if you just bounced out of this now, and you went to another one, and then you went to another one, you're going to forget what this was, and you're just going to spend a lot of time going back and forth. Just write down like a brief thing for this address, how much this property cost, what neighborhood it's in, and like what the your mortgage payment would be on it. That way you can get all that information in one spot by looking at it and be able to compare them quickly. Because if you don't, then it's going to start getting really chaotic. I'm telling you, you should definitely do that. You're also going to want to keep that in mind when trying to compare the rental rates in this area and see if this is going to make sense now. If you want to look those up, kind of specific details, a simple Google search should be able to give you the rental rates for a particular zip code for a 1-bedroom house, 2-bedroom house, 3-bedroom, whatever. But on Zillow, you can find the rent value estimate right here. I've seen times where that's pretty accurate, but I've also seen times where it's not. If you're looking at a multifamily unit, it's not going to be accurate at all, just because of how they calculate it. For this one, $1,800 for a 2-bedroom, I would say that's about right. It might be a little bit high, but you could probably get away with $1,800, especially because it has a pool. Right now in the current COVID situation, that might be a little bit high, but I would say that's about right for this one. You can also, if you wanted to find out, you can also go back to the buy and rent tab where we were earlier, and just click the rent one instead of the for sale, and put in the details. You know, I want a 2-bedroom, 1-bath in this location, and you can see what is being listed in that area and how much it's renting for, so you know what to compare it to. If all of them are about $1,800, you know that you're pretty good. If they're all about $1,400, then you know, this monthly house is going to be too much, because most of these properties around here are $1,400. So I'm not going to be able to compete. That's a good way to find it on Zillow and compare it to actual properties in that particular neighborhood. And the reason why you're going to want to write all this information down, you know, is because each property is different. Each property has a different amount of square footage. Each property has different features. This one has a pool. If you don't write that information down, you're probably going to forget about it. You can save it right here. You're going to have to make an account on Zillow or whatever. It's for free, but whatever. But, you know, each property is different. So if you don't write this information down, it's going to get chaotic. You're going to be all over the place, and you're going to forget what a certain property has. Also write down this HOA, because some HOAs are insane. Some are a pretty good deal. This one, unfortunately, is about standard for San Diego, but whatever. Okay, and lastly, if you scroll all the way to the bottom right here, you can see some pretty good information about this neighborhood. It's got a 53 transit score. It used to always post the walk score. If you look on the mobile version, it might give you the walk score, pretty much meaning that this area is in a really good area that has a lot of stores, bars, parks around it, and that will give you a pretty good walk score. I'm figuring this is what that transit score is too. But that's something good, you know, if you have a 95 walk score or something, and if you wanted to, you can just look it up, and you can go on here, you can put down the address of that property, and you can find what the walk score is. So just to show you guys that real quick, because that's definitely something that you could use to add extra added value to your property, and you might be able to get a higher rent for that, right? If it's in like a cool downtown area where there's a lot of stuff, then you might be able to, get a higher rent. So this one's got a 79, not bad. And you can see on the map here where there's, there's grocery stores, there's shopping areas, there's restaurants, here's a school. So stuff like that can really boost the property value and the appreciation over time, as well as how much you can rent it out for. Here's some pretty good stats to see, is this area appreciating? Is it depreciating? But so home values in Castle, that's this area right here, have risen 6% over the past 12 months. That's pretty good. So Zillow predicts the home values in Castle will rise 5% in the next year. Yeah, this is an area that's appreciating a pretty good amount. This home is valued 35.3% lower than the median home in Castle. Again, it might be because this is a condo, but that's something to take note of too. This one, it's saying that it's cheaper. I wouldn't always trust these numbers. Don't ever just trust these numbers, but they are roughly good indicators of what properties are doing in general. This appreciation increase is pretty true of what's happening in San Diego. This you can compare by looking at other properties. But again, every property is different. Just because it says it's lower, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a better deal. You just have to look at these details. And like this has a pool. It's gated. There's garages, right? It's a pretty nice facility. All those things have to be taken into account for the property. You can't just look at these metrics and say it's going to be a good deal. You've got to look at the nuances and the details of the property, and that's why you want to take note of that and write that down. Okay, so once you have all that information, once you've found a property that you think might be a good potential one, you've done all these numbers, you've looked at the rent rates. Now look at this and see, okay, is my monthly mortgage payment going to be a good reflection of the rent? Okay, so first you're going to be living in that property for, maybe a year, maybe it's 2 years, 3 years. What I would do is I would just, without digging into this a lot, right? I would want to look into this more. The short amount of time that we spent on this is not going to be enough. But I would say, okay, this might be a good deal, right? Because if I can get this for $1,881 and I can rent it out for $1,800, some people might say, oh, well, you're not even breaking even on it. Okay, well, hold on, right? Because you might be able to, if you haven't seen my previous video, you might be able to use the IRRRL, which is like an interest rate reduction refinance loan, to lower this interest rate. So, let's say you did that and now it's at 2.8%, right? Did that even lower it at all? Oh yeah, it did. Okay. So, that's almost $1,800 now. This is just an estimate, right? But now you're about breaking even. But that doesn't really mean breaking even, because you're going to want to set aside a certain amount each month for vacancies, for potential vacancies in the future, and any repairs that you need. The HOA fees that you have are going to help with any maintenance things that need to be taken on the outside of the property, but it's not going to take care of anything on the inside of the property. And as well as vacancies, you want to be setting aside money for that. So just looking at this, you're like, okay, I could rent it out for $1,800. My mortgage is $1,800. It looks like I'm breaking even-ish, right? $12 less, but you're not really, because what I always like to do, a lot of people use different numbers for this stuff, but take a certain portion of whatever you're renting it for and set that aside for vacancies and repairs, and then you break even, right? So maybe if you were able to rent it for $2,000 a month and you were, saving $200 per month from your rent, even still, that's a little bit low, just because, 200 times 12, that's $2,400 over the course of the whole year that someone's renting. That's only going to cover about 1 month of vacancy if those people decide to move out after a year. It's going to take about 3 weeks, a month and a half to re-rent that property and fix anything that's on the inside. So if you have $2,400 saved up from your extra cash flow and you have to keep it vacant for a month, well, that's already $1,800 down, and it only leaves you $400 to fix any repairs. Maybe those repairs cost $600. Well, you didn't really make any money in that time. You actually lost $200. Yes, you got some equity by paying off your loan and everything like that. But that's why you breaking even for your rent, for how much you're paying for the mortgage is not breaking even. You've got to make sure you have enough of a buffer in order to cover any vacancies and repairs. Once you hit that buffer, whatever that number is that you've decided for yourself, anything more than that is now cash flow. So don't just think that because you can rent it out for this price right here means that it's a good deal. That doesn't mean that. So if you guys have any questions or anything like that, ask down in the description or in the comment section, fucking what. And if you like this video, fucking like it. That'd be sweet. If you want to subscribe, fucking sweet. Please subscribe. That'd be awesome. All right. And then for all of you real estate gurus out there, please don't shit on this video. I know a lot of people say you should find off-market deals. Well, if someone's buying their house for the first time, they're probably not going to find an off-market deal, especially using the VA loan. So, if you're going to be using Zillow, if you're going to be using Realtor.com, there's definitely good things to do and bad things to do. So, just make sure you're doing your best to find the best property you can with the skill set that you have.
So in the next video I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to be discussing about how this estimated rent value is really going to be able to, you're going to be able to use it to figure out if you can break even or make a small profit. And the thing is that breaking even doesn't really mean what you think it means for real estate. It doesn't just mean, are you renting it out for the same amount as your mortgage? Because there's a lot of other things you got to factor in with that. So I'll go over that and some strategies on how to lower your mortgage payment over time in order to get to a point where you can either break even or make a little bit of profit. So if you're interested in that and you're interested in starting your first steps towards getting your first property and really getting into real estate investing, then I encourage you to, subscribe and hit that bell in order to, just be notified when those videos come out. It's a really good way to make sure that you're staying up to date with this stuff and you're really continuing on with this process. You learn one aspect of it and then you're gonna learn the next step and the next step. And it's really good to be able to take actionable steps when you watch one of these videos so that you build the good skills. So that way when you see the next step, you already know what I'm talking about and you can start doing that process, and it's gonna get you closer and closer to getting your first property and get into real estate investing. And yeah, I just wanna say one more time, using Zillow and Realtor.com are not the best ways to find the best deal for a property. But again, it's a method that most people are gonna do starting out. Once you get more advanced with real estate, and once you get your feet wet in the whole process and you know how everything works, then there are definitely better ways to find better deals with real estate. But until then, just make your own decisions. If you want to go this route, then sweet. It's the way that most people do it. And there's a lot of ways that you can use these sites in the wrong way. You can definitely get into a situation where you don't buy a good deal. It's far from a good deal in real estate. But by doing some of these things that I talked about, you can find a better deal. It's maybe not be the best deal that's out there, but it's a way for you to make sure that you're getting the best deal that you possibly can by using some of these sites that most people use. And once you start getting more comfortable, you can start finding some of those off-market properties that you might be able to fix up and get the best deal for your money and be able to get the best ROI. But until then, just make your own decision. If you want to go this route, then sweet. But if not, then try these more advanced methods and see how that goes for yourself.